Welcome to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I am the advertising manager, and I get to be your host today. We want to thank our sponsor today, who is asking to remain anonymous. We appreciate everyone who sponsors us, and we appreciate you also. And if you, I hope you'll enjoy the program today, and we appreciate you donating to make this happen today. As always, the questions will be at the last 15 minutes of the program. If you'll please put the questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. I can't always see them when they're in the chat, but keep the comments coming. Those are great. We love y'all sharing comments with each other. Today, we have Neal Howard. Neal is a North Carolina native. She began her journey with color and fiber at an early age, and she's had over 30 years of a professional experience weaving and dyeing silk. Neal holds a BA degree with a double major in Sociology and Psychology from Guilford College, an associate's degree in professional crafts/fiber from Haywood Community College, and a certificate in theology from the School of Theology at the University of the South. Her award-winning work can be seen in private collections and venues across the United States, and including as part of a collection with Sari, Srulovich, and Ruth Cox, the Judaic collection of North Carolina Museum of Art. She is a member of the Southern Highlands Craft Guild and the Piedmont Craftsmen, Inc. She teaches at weaving, dyeing, and Nuno felting at John C. Campbell Folk School and at other regional arts organizations. The various techniques and processes Neal's employs have become for her as much as a spiritual practice as a career. And we're going to hear a lot more about that today. Hey, Neal.
Hey,
how are you?
Glad to be here.
I am glad you're here too.
Almost made me late. So
yeah, we'll talk to Liz about that later. All right. First is our important question, which is, what is your favorite tea?
My favorite tea is Red Zinger by Celestial Seasoning or Seasons.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's a first for us.
Okay.
Good. Good.
I like it because it's red.
There you go. Absolutely. So would you tell us how you got started in fiber?
Oh, sure. As a child, I had a toy loom. I don't remember that as much as I remember art lessons, and we'll get to that later on. But I certainly had a mother and a grandmother who knit, crocheted, and did all kinds of embroidery and fiber arts like that. They were not weavers. And I resisted as long as I could. And when I was about the age of 30, maybe sometime between 1984 and 85, a boyfriend, who I'm sure would love to remain anonymous, bless his heart, gave me rigid heddle lessons for a Christmas present. And so I started taking rigid heddle weaving lessons with Susan Morgan Levier in Dillsboro, North Carolina, and that was in a January. And by that fall, I mean, it was like, you know, the heavens opened and a light came on and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, I'm home now. And I was enrolled at Haywood Community College by that fall in their profession.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's such a an epiphany. You
I
went,
know.
I need to be a weaver.
Well, yeah, it just felt like I had come home. So
oh, that's great. That's great.
It was a lovely place to be because I'm often lost. So anyway.
Well, this next picture we have is of you and Liz Spear, and Liz has been on Textiles and Tea also. Yeah. And you guys collaborate a lot on your work. So how did the two of you start working together? And first, talk about how you two got together. And then I want you to talk a little bit about what are the advantages and disadvantages of working so closely with someone.
Okay. Well, one, I do want to say that Liz and I have separate businesses. And until the last 3 years, we lived in different counties. We now live about 6 miles apart. But we pretty much had we do have different businesses. We are closely associated because we're very good friends and we show together. We share Liz's booth at most fine craft shows. And at one particular crossroads in my life, in 1999, I believe it is, Liz asked me if, she said, you know, we're members of the similar organizations, our work goes together, would you like to share booth? And I said, oh, yes, okay. Then she immediately went off to Montana, got on a horse, fell off the horse, broke both her arms, and I was like, what the hell? Pardon my French, but it was, what have you gotten me into now, Neal? And our first show together was that summer, 99, July, Crafts Fair of the Southern Highlands. She had 2 broken arms. I had a broken stress fracture in my foot from dancing too much in the wrong shoes, had a hot flash and went to the bathroom and threw up. And that's how we started. And I don't know why we're still together, but we are. Collaborating with her is an easy thing because at some point she, not right away, but at some point she said, you know, you should, you know, make some clothes. I said, well, I can't sew. So she sewed my clothes for me, and she still does. To quote Liz, Neal, you can't sew for shit. And she's right. And it would take a lifetime to be, another lifetime to learn to sew hand woven cloth as well as Liz does. So I pay her to do it for me. But the collaboration first started with my scraps that she hung on to. And some years later, it was like they showed up in her work. Where'd that come from? And so collaborating with Liz is real easy. She gets my leftovers and does whatever the heck she wants to with it. And that's how we did our thing. And that's how we continue to do it.
We're going to talk some more about that, but I'm
Okay.
also curious because you do dyeing, right? You dye your yarn.
Mhm.
And so many people that I've interviewed, they always have a reason why they dye. There's half a dozen, right? What is your reason or reasons that you dye? Because it's a lot of work.
It's work. The way I do it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. Partly because I don't remember my first loom. What I remember are painting classes when I was between the ages of 6 and 10. And that's where I learned all my color theory. I was just having fun learning to paint, but I wanted to be Vincent van Gogh when I grew up at that point, until I read one of his biographies and went, well, maybe not. That's probably the reason I've got degrees in psychology and theology, though. Anyway, so that was always there, lurking in my background. And so I wanted to dye my own colors because I wanted to make my own colors. And I want, of course, control. So it's as much about control and doing it my way, putting the color where I want it, when I want it there. What I've learned over the years is I have minimal control, but that also speaks to why do I use silk? Because silk takes the color so magnificently that's where I started. And it was just, nobody else was doing it with silk because silk is expensive. And it was just a little niche that I've drifted into and I've just stayed there. So does that answer the question?
Was it one of those things that you went, oh, I think I'll try some silk and see what happens? And then again, had another aha moment of, man, this is the route to go.
Well, Catherine Ellis was my teacher at Haywood. She was Catherine, another name anyway. And she sent her most promising students off to do work at Penland. And I was the fetch it girl or the studio assistant for a 3-week concentration session. And it happened to be about dyeing silk. Now the teacher was using natural dyes. And of course, every time she shared the formula, it was, Neal, get me an ink pen, go fetch the this. And it was not deliberate on her part. It just happened that I didn't get to hear that part of the teaching. I just got the dip it in the silk, dip the silk in the dye, and wow, wonderful things happen. And when I came back, Catherine Ellis said, "Oh, well, I can show you something about that." Because the chemistry of dyeing plumb evades me. I just give me the simple down and dirty. I just want to put some color in there. And she showed me how to do that. It's called space dyeing, and I have done it that way ever since.
Now, do you use natural dyes or do you do synthetic?
No, I use Lanaset dyes. For me, when I teach, sometimes I use other protein dyes that are designed for protein fiber.
Mhm.
Natural dyes, to do it well and do it with, this is my opinion, and do it with very predictable, controllable sorts of results, you need to understand your chemistry. And I need color and I need it now. My brain does not, that's not a happy place for my brain. So
You're my kind of woman. You're my kind of woman. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And you had such a great teacher too. I mean, Catherine Ellis. Oh my God.
Absolutely. She once introduced me to someone, and she was rising, and her fame as a natural dyer was rising. And I don't remember who she introduced me to. It was at Convergence in Milwaukee on the streets. She said, "This is Neal, blah, blah, blah." She still walks on the dark side, meaning she uses synthetic dyes. And I looked right at her and I said, "And who taught me how to walk on the dark side?" And that's the last I've heard of that. Um,
Ah,
so she's a dear. She's a
you,
dear and a
you
great teacher.
you teach dyeing too, don't you?
Well, you should know, you were in the class. Did I teach it or not?
Yes, I have to, confess that Neal was my teacher and it was so much fun and we learned so much. And you're right, the outcomes were just amazing. Not because it was silk, but it was because you were the teacher.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Well, I know somebody's going to ask this. What is the thing on the left here that's coiled up?
That is more than likely, that is a scarf that has been, is ready to be over dyed. The process or the technique that's going on there is called woven shibori. Catherine Ellis is pretty famous for that too. And I was her student before she was doing this, but she taught me enough about how to weave so that when I heard this was what she was doing, I said, "I bet I can do that," and did it. When her book came out, I read the pictures and did it better. And when I was asked to teach, I read the words and said, we don't do it exactly the same way.
Huh.
But essentially the same way.
Do you do
So
a lot of shibori for your warps and wefts?
yes, well, the warps are, I dye the warps before they go on the loom. This is my process. Dress the loom. Now I use plain weave. That is my weave structure.
Hmm.
Um, and it has to do with, there are a lot of reasons. Mostly math is not my strong suit. And so making complex calculations that have to do with weave structure and width come out right is, thank you very much. I'll stick to dyeing. Woven shibori is a Japanese word that means tide resist, and this is loom controlled tie dye. People who have no idea, I usually say, think of the hippies in the tie-dyed t-shirts, and instead of rubber bands, I'm using embroidery floss and a loom to control the patterns. And it yields a lovely organic sort of surface design. So that's what's going on the left.
Well, when you're designing what you're going to make, is it different when you're designing, you want to do your thing versus either a collaboration or a commission?
Yes, it is. And it is because when I'm doing my thing, in my early years, I put a fair amount of brain power in calculations and making plans. And then I realized that I was making mistakes. I was being disappointed. So it was better for me in my process to not have so much invested in the results, just see what happens. And
Oh, really?
yeah. And so over the years, I've established some parameters. And as I'm weaving, sometimes it's, I wonder what would happen if, and I go from there. When I am doing a commission, as you can see in this image here, that little picture in the middle is a representation of what it was supposed to look like when it was finished. And I had to work calculations, you know, use all my math skills and ratios to blow that up, so that that little picture up, so that I was dyeing warps in the right place, in the right proportion, so that the color was transitioning the way that this was Sari Srulovich, and so that the colors would fall exactly where she wanted them to. It probably didn't matter as much to her as I thought it did, but I took it, every little thread, seriously. And so I worked on it very, very hard, and did it wrong a couple of times.
Do you mostly draw everything out by hand, or do you use a computer? Or
no computer. Computer designing with the computer was just coming in to looming on the horizon in the weaving studio when I was leaving the studio, and I had a little bit of experience with it, but I still, if I really, really, really need to know exactly how it's going to work out, this is more of an ombre sort of design, so I didn't have to use my colored pencils and graph paper, except in terms of 1 square equals an inch kind of thing. But there for a while, I love coloring colored pencils and little squares, so I still do it that way when I'm gotta know.
oh, good.
But I've done it long enough, I pretty much know what it's going to do. So
Well, that's true. That's true.
yeah.
This next image is one of your jackets that you made, and it's embellished. It's so pretty. I just love the embroidery that you did on it. But I understand that embroidery is more for you than just surface design, more than just something added on. Is that
Well,
true?
it in some cases it is. In this particular case, I was experimenting early in my experimentations. By the way, that shirt that my beautiful jacket is sitting on is Liz Spears' shirt, but it was taken in Liz's studio. But anyway, I was experimenting with surface design and stenciling on already woven cloth, and I got that much done, and the jacket was on display and offered for sale, and it didn't sell, and I decided I didn't like it, and I was an utter failure, and oh well, I should go home and never do this again. 5 years later, I pull it out of a trunk somewhere and went, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not finished. And that's when I started doing the embroidery on it. And I believe, at least, I believe it's sold. At least a deposit was put down for it at Convergence in Wichita.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. So we hope that person follows through. I bet she will. But
whoever you are, your jacket's now famous. So there you go.
I'm sorry.
Whoever she is, if she's watching, she needs to
Yeah,
know her jacket is now famous.
I hope she's watching. Yes. So yeah, but embroidery, and to address your second half of the question, embroidery is important to me on another level, because my mother and my grandmother were embroiderers, and I learned a lot of the embroidery techniques as a young person, and then as a young teen, you know, needlepoint and all this. Counting cross stitch kind of defeated me because I couldn't keep all my crosses going kept turning the fabric. So, but anyway, and now I use a technique that doesn't matter. But during COVID, you know, I couldn't go out there and earn a living. And I had both my mother and my grandmother are dead, and I have almost enough embroidery floss and hoops and needles to open an embroidery, a yarn store on my own. That's an exaggeration, but it feels like it. And it's like, let's do something with this.
Mhm.
And since they are dead, and they were instrumental in getting me into this crazy business. There is something about doing that and using their leftovers. Of course, I still buy more stuff. You can't ever have enough stuff, but that is an homage,
Mhm.
honors the ancestors kind of thing.
Well, I'm gonna have a shirt made up because this will be like probably the third program in a row that I've said this, is that yarn is like wine. You need to age it before you use it.
Oh,
So that's why even though we have yarn, we have to buy more so that,
yes,
right?
very good. I like that. Okay. Okay.
I have a guest today. Um, okay, you live in North Carolina,
Do I?
God's country. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It is.
And you have a studio there. We've got an image coming up with that. And
There it is.
it's just so pretty. So, but there's advantages and drawbacks to any place that you live, right? So how does living here impact your work, for good or for bad?
Well, it's for good in the sense that all of the middle view is inside those 3 windows on the right. That's where I'm sitting. That's the den. And I love it. This is the first place I've lived that I've actually had a living space that's upstairs in that image, that is truly separate from where I work. I've been living in my studio for years. I've had to learn how to commute here, but I like trees a lot. And so I am really living in the forest, and getting sunsets and sunrises. And that image on the left is what I see when I walk to the mailbox. And the others are just from my deck upstairs, immediately above me. So it's a beautiful place. It is a brand new perspective for me up at 3,600 feet. And I did notice that I've been here about 3 years, and I did notice that a lot of my colors look a whole lot more like camouflage than they looked when I lived next to a creek with rocks and more flowers. This is shady all the time. It's about 60 degrees here. So, so anyway, for me. There's all that. And I'm working on brightening things up a little bit, just because everybody doesn't want to pay big bucks for camouflage. So anyway, and I just love all kinds of color. So that's one way it affects me. I just get to live here instead of in a city. I get to look at this beauty instead of the dump or the trailers. I did have a view of trailers once, that sort of thing. But I also have a childhood home that I grew up on Bath Creek, which is very flat, but is on the water. And instead of a sunset like that one that you see there, it would be a sunrise. And that has also it's just the natural beauty that gives me the peace and the impetus to make stuff, I think.
Now I know some places there's issues like with water and electricity and internet and stuff. Do you have to fight with any of that?
No, I'm supposed to share my internet with 2 other tenants, but I am 2 of the 3 potential tenants because I rented up 2 apartments, the upstairs and the downstairs, and the other guy moved out. So I've got the internet all to myself. It's included in the rent. and the water comes out of a spring, and it's filtered, it's hard water, but it doesn't seem to make any difference as long as I can shift the pH so that the silk is happy. The dyeing works just fine.
You are an artist that teaches and sells. You did lots of conferences and festivals, and I hope you'll talk about that some at some point. What you got coming up next? And you were just at Convergence a few weeks ago. So I know that one of the things that you have on your website, which I thought was an interesting thing to post, is that it's important that people see the work in person. You know, they try it on, see how it feels, how it looks on them. So I know that these selling events are really important for you to be at, but they're so time consuming. They're physically hard too. So how do you do it all? How do you get all of it done?
Well, so glad you asked, Kathy. Liz Spear helps. Two of us doing it together make it a whole
true.
Here. The image on the left is it's technically Liz's booth, and only the garment on the right in that image is my work. The other three are Liz's garments. The one on the leftmost side has the pretty part, that red insert, that's my cloth. So that's one of our collaborated pieces, I guess. You know, 30 years ago, we could stand flat on our feet and screw those top screws in. Now we have to get on step ladders, but our bodies are telling us that it's time to slow down. But we've been at it and happy doing it. We don't do that many shows. Liz came to me into my life with a lot of experience as a potter, doing lots and lots and lots of various and sundry street shows, crafts fairs, and so I didn't have to go out and experiment and see which shows worked the best for me. She saved me a whole lot of time in that respect. So when we started, we stick to the North Carolina shows, and I love to do the Convergence shows. Takes me to some strange places. I would never go to Kansas otherwise.
Well, isn't that great? You know?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is. It is. And then the shot on the right is my personal yarn booth at a small yarn show that happens in the spring in Raleigh, Carolina Fiber Fest. And it's just easier when people can touch and feel and find out how wonderful silk is. And there are fears that are built. Silk is so expensive, I'm going to screw it up. It's hard to screw up silk. You got to work really hard to do that. And I am there to, you know, when you buy from me, especially a kit, you get my hand to hold, you get telephone number and email. And if there's anything that you don't understand, get a hold of me. Most people just show up and say, look what I did. And they're so happy. So it's, so anyway, we may be slowing down. Probably won't ever stop though.
Well, good for us.
Yeah, good for us. Yeah.
This next piece is at the St. David Episcopal Church.
In
And
Cullowhee, North Carolina.
It's in North Carolina?
In Cullowhee, North Carolina.
Oh, Cullowhee. All right. And I was surprised when I read that you had studied theology. So does that come into your work, your personal beliefs, when you're designing or choosing what you're going to do, that kind of thing?
Sometimes it does. It's not so much what I believe as respect for whatever tradition I might be designing for. Now, I am a cradle Episcopalian, and St. David's Episcopal was my home church for a long time, and they have several sets of paraments and wanted some to match their this is their Advent set, and they wanted it to match the candles. So I mean, you know, so I
Kind of like matching the couch, right?
Yeah, And that's okay. I understood that. So still yet, and even so, my tradition lets me understand what those colors mean in that Christian tradition. Now, the work that I did with Sari Srulovich, even though Christianity comes right out of Judaism, I don't know that much about their particular practices per se and values, and asked some Jewish, I referred to the Old Testament and asked some Jewish friends, so that I could be respectful of the colors and what I was up to. If Buddhists or Hindus or Baha'i or goodness knows who else is out there ever commissioned me to do anything of a religious nature or ritual, I would want to know about their tradition and respect that before I would do any work commissioned like that.
Well, I thought that it was interesting that you do sociology, psychology, and theology, because those seem to kind of weave in and out of each other. At times they're so parallel and maybe even blend, and then sometimes they're so far apart. I just thought it was an interesting background. And then to go into fibering, being creative.
Well, it is an interesting background. Now, I sort of started with the art thing, and then life happened. And I had, without going into details, I basically, as many people who major in those things, study those things do, had to figure out what was wrong with me. And when I got to a place where the world does not want to be saved, I realized it's my job to save myself. And that doesn't really mean from hellfire, just from the stuff, ordinary trauma of growing up and being a human being on the planet. It's not, nobody locked me in a closet or beat me or anything like that. I did at one point feel called to be a priest. And after a year of prayerful discernment with the St. David's priest at the time, got to the place where I had not given weaving 100%. And since then, I have felt that creativity is a calling. It is a calling on me. It's not a calling on everybody. Everybody doesn't feel that way about it. It's just on me. And I don't think it has, I don't know. It informs me, but it's specific to me and my path, and I like knowing that stuff.
What a lovely way of putting that. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you find that you see spiritualism in your work, or it impacts on when you're designing? Or
well, it runs so parallel for me that it probably, anybody else can couch it in the, oh, I had this big idea. Who knows where it comes from? And then there's the idea wouldn't let me go. God wants, it's easy for me to go, God wants me to do this. I can also leave that word God behind and say that the universe, the big it, the whatever it is, wants me to explore this and go with it. I don't, personally, I think all of the ritual and dogma and teaching is of great benefit. And at some point, I got to the place where any one of the religions or philosophies puts me in too small a box. And I'm an out of the box kind of person.
you are.
And so So yeah, God tells me what to do. The trees may tell me what to do. I don't know. When I'm in the flow, I mean, I waited for 10 years for one wall piece to tell me to embroider 2 inches of fuchsia thread right there. And then it was finished.
So do you do that? You have pieces that you kind of set aside and then you go back to them later and,
Yeah.
oh, okay, okay.
I have tried to do it's like, I really want to do wall pieces, and I try and I get a little body of work done. Well, they're not finished. I don't know that at the time. They're not finished. I'll go, I'm a failure, put it away, and go back to production, my level of production weaving, and I'm doing fine and I'm very happy. So big deal. And dig it out of the tub years later and go, oh, that's not that bad. It would be, what if I did this little thing to it?
Yeah, yeah.
Not finished. Or I believe somebody else when they don't say anything, if they don't rave about it, oh, you're Picasso born again, or whatever, you're a genius, then it's like, oh, I'm a total failure, it's utterly bad, I better go back to kindergarten or something. Well, no, I've finally lived long enough. That's not true. And pulling some things that were ignored or I thought they were dissed, out of tubs, and having people go, well, where did that come from? That's gorgeous. Like, oh, 5 years ago, you couldn't see it. Well, okay. And I've sort of quit listening to what they think is a good idea, unless I need some help, because they have plenty of good ideas, whoever they are, and have plenty of useful information. And listen to that small voice that says, what if you shot a hole in it? I'm working on that. I'm not going to get a gun, but I got friends with guns, and we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I think
Shredding the fabric of society.
it's so hard to be an artist. It's hard to be a fiber artist too.
Yeah.
So this kind of makes me understand a little bit more about, how do you stay sane and be a fiber artist and not get discouraged and want to chuck it all? And
well, I have. And every time I get to the crossroads where now's the time for me to either learn to, re-educate myself, be a medical transcriptionist and earn a living, damn it. Something happens, like Liz Spears says, you want to show with me? A door opens and I say yes and walk through it. And here I am. It helps that I feel like I'm called. But that was not where I started. That was somewhere in the middle. And now I have lived long enough and done enough shows that doesn't matter if it's ugly. To me, it's going to sell. Somebody's going to find, I don't have to, no, I'm not going to quit. And I have done those things that didn't feel like faith at the time. They only feel like faith in retrospect. And I've done this more than once, literally the last $25 bought a tank of gas to get me to the show, with no guarantee that I was going to sell anything or have money to get back. I'm still here. Just don't quit.
just don't quit. There you go.
Just don't quit.
Well, what are some of the favorite parts for you about being an artist versus running a business versus teaching?
Well, being an artist, I love the making, and when I get into the flow, there's a place where I'll have an audiobook on and I've missed a couple of chapters because I can't hear it anymore. I am somewhere else. I don't know where, and I don't care, but it's a good place. And so I love that. I hate the deadlines, but they're usually what gets me working. Running a business, anybody will tell you I would do better if I had paid attention to the marketing classes and suggestions that they taught me at Haywood Community College. There's stuff that I am not wired in a way to either make that choice I don't know what it is, but it's not something I can do. And so I don't make a great living, but I'm still here. I'm still here. So running the business, the best thing about it is paying the bills. The worst thing about it is having to pay the bills. Worrying about, do I have enough money to get from this month to the next month? That kind of thing. I've finally lived long enough to know that I'm going to be okay. My needs are taken care of. This is my take on it. Nobody else's but mine. You can find many other ways to explain it, but I tend to believe that because I am doing what I'm called to do, I am taken care of. I don't have a TV set. I don't have a lot of stuff. The furniture that I do have is the same furniture that I took with me to my first apartment when I left for college, literally. And the other furniture is I've inherited or found in the dump or yard sales, that kind of thing. I buy clothes most of the time at secondhand stores. I live simply. I have established what is important to me, and buying the next room full of yarn is what's important to me. And, I don't care if I don't have steak to eat. I don't care if I don't go to the Bahamas on vacation. Well, I am doing what I want to do. I don't need to retire. I'm doing what I want to do. And I'd like to do more of it. And so it's not quite a monk's life, but there are aspects of it that, because I'm committed to this as a career, I don't have a husband. That's probably not why. I'm just too selfish. I don't have any children. I don't have other responsibilities because this is all I can handle. Absolutely all I can handle. And it's all I want to do. So why I don't think I'm missing those things. But that's me. If I weren't doing this, I would be incarcerated, institutionalized, or dead. So
Well, you've added teaching lately, right? Or am I misunderstanding that? Added teaching recently.
Yes, relatively recently. Yes.
Yeah, relatively recently.
Yes.
And how's that been?
I love it when people are having fun, when the light bulb comes on, or because I like to teach process, not product. So if you're coming to my class because you're going to weave Granny a scarf, forget it. I hope you're going to have fun learning to do things the way that I do these things. And there's way more than one way to do it, but this is the way I figured it out. And I love to see that light bulb come on and people be curious about what they can do to take it and make it theirs. What's hard about teaching is being ready. Because what I have done for so many years that I don't think about each little bitty step because it flows. In order to teach it, you need to make note of all those little steps. It's like being a wonderful chef, but not being able to write your recipe down because you're going to leave something out. And that's the frustration for me, is if it's magic and it's wonderful and I love the flow but if I've got to write every little detail down, it concretizes, takes that sort of out of it, takes the magic out of it for me. But I'm beginning to suspect that seeing the magic come alive in other people, Kathy, may be worth it, especially as I'm getting older. So
I hope so. Because that class was fun.
good.
We had a great time. And
That's what WTF stands for. Wow, that's fun.
there you go. I don't even know if I should ask this question after everything we've talked about, but I'm going to anyway. If you had a day where you didn't have to do anything and you're just going to do something for a guilty pleasure, what would it be?
What I've been doing this past week after I came back from Convergence and couldn't go do Crafts Fair of the Southern Highlands. I was exhausted, and it was just as well I didn't push to try to do that. That again was something divine taking care of me, in my opinion. So because I didn't come down with COVID and I didn't give it to anybody else. But anyway, I decided to treat myself. I've always wanted to knit myself a sweater out of silk, and I am knitting the sweater out of silk.
Really?
That I have dyed. I've dyed the silk and
Uh-huh.
done it all right, knit samples and tried different stitches and washed and blocked and how much does it sag and droop and do da, 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 da. So I've got my gauge and I am knitting a sweater. It may look like a sweatshirt, but it will be a silk sweatshirt, baby.
Yeah. It's gonna be the finest sweatshirt there ever is.
You bet. And it's gonna fit. And
there you go.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I didn't realize you were a knitter.
I'm not. It's a hobby. I made my grandmother teach me how to knit when I was 5 because I like the sound of the aluminum needles clicking together. I know how to do a whole lot of fiber stuff that never shows up in my work because I grew up with it. But
well, I was curious because I mean, for people like me who are doing weaving as a hobby, my guilty pleasure would be, like when I went to John C. Campbell and all I had to do was weave, I didn't have to do dishes. I didn't have to answer the phone. I have to make beds, and so when you do it for a living, where do you go for your guilty pleasure? So
well, I live by myself. I don't have to do the dishes. I don't have to answer the phone. Who does it matter to? It only matters to me. And if a customer does call, I make note and I will get back to you. I'm not a bad customer service after the sale especially is I think important, but it doesn't matter. You don't want to see the floor. There's no vacuum cleaner down here. There's one upstairs. And how long have I had my Saber cat? Maybe June, July, August, 3 months. I've run the vacuum once. We don't care.
The cat probably says, I just seen you not. So there you go.
Yeah. And you can come and visit me. And if you care, you don't have to come back, or here's the vacuum, you can run it. That's fine with me. I let go of some of that.
I like, letting go. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I finally don't have to live up to anybody's standards but mine.
Well, what's next for you?
I'm gonna finish that sweater.
Well, besides that, because you're going to be at SAF, right?
Yeah, I am.
Southeast Animal Fiber Festival, right?
Fiber Fair, Fiber Festival, Fiber.
One of those things.
Falderall, I don't know.
It's in Asheville.
It is in Asheville, and it is the same weekend as the October edition of the Crafts Fair of the Southern Highlands.
Oh, no.
So Liz and I will set up the Southern Highlands booth on Wednesday, and I will go out to the Ag Center and set up SAF on Thursday. And my work will be in both places, but my body will be at SAF.
Is Liz going to do the other one?
Yeah, she'll do the other one, and that will probably not happen again for years and years and years. And they will be on sequential weekends again, and we'll both be at both of them. So, yeah,
I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, we'll also be, golly, at Piedmont Craftsmen in November, then Carolina Fiber Fest in March. I'll be at the Folk School teaching Nuno felting with Liz. She teaches the Nuno and the felting. I say I teach the Nuno because it's got Nuno felting process is felting with a layer of cloth, and we use silk. And all I do is teach the down and dirty, put some color on that silk cloth now. That's what I teach.
That
So,
sounds like fun.
yeah, it's fun. It's
Well,
fun.
good. And then somebody did a plug in the chat that you're going to be at. Are you doing news?
News.
I
know
New
of,
England, New England. Oh, where are you?
My plan is I haven't submitted the application. I'll be at MAFA next year,
Okay. Oh,
Mid-Atlantic.
Eastern Great Lakes Fiber Conference.
Oh,
I
yes,
apologize. I
Yeah.
apologize to Marianne. Sorry, Marianne. I
Yes,
called the
I will
wrong
be
thing.
there, but that's 2025.
Right.
And I'll tell you the truth, I try to keep my website stuff up to date, and there's a schedule. I wanted it to be, that's the template, and it's extra if you want to put the "Where's Neal" instead of schedule. But go to my website and click the schedule, and that'll be where I am. I'm usually mostly home though.
Well, look, we've got a couple of questions. Let's grab those real quick.
All right.
And some of these were already answered. So,
All right.
Kathy wanted to know, do you sew your own garments? Now, you don't do any sewing, right? Do you leave it all, or do you do some, right?
I do some of the finishing. Liz
Okay.
makes me tack places in the sleeves, and sometimes hand stitch the line if there's a lining or something like that, and I have to sew the labels in things. That is my least favorite part of my process. I pay Liz Spear to sew my garments because Neal can't sew for shit and doesn't want.
We all have our own gifts, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Karen LeBlanc's got a great question. She wants to know if you're going to do a book. She says, have you ever thought about writing a book about your approach to life and weaving? It sounds like an awesome book.
No, but we can, I mean, I have teased with friends about writing books since I was in college. We were going to write a book called Wrong End of the Rainbow there for a little while. One of the metaphors I use for my life and what is inside my head is a school bus, and there's all these people on the school bus. And they're like screaming kids, and everybody wants to drive. Well, therapy and my self-work and working on my spirituality calms those voices down so that only one person gets to drive.
I like that analogy.
You know, there's mamas on the bus, the good mamas on the bus, the bad mamas on the bus. There's the good daddy, there's the bad daddy, there's the evil brother, there's the good, there's all these people from my life that have influenced me that are on the bus. There is also a Special Forces Marine with a big gun. He's on the bus too, and he will tell you to sit down and shut up and point the gun at you.
This is going to be a great book. I can just visualize it now.
But what helps, really, really, really what helps is when I'm upset, people that hear this go, Neal, who's driving the bus? And it's like, oh yeah. Cause the one there's a 5 or 6 year old that's on the bus, and she is scared to death most of the time. And after working on myself for a long time, I figured out there's a grown-up on the bus, and she doesn't get to drive either, but she sits close to the front. And when the little ones that are scared and want to act up come up to the front of the bus, it's my job as a grown-up, or it's the grown-up's job, I don't know, to catch them. And yes, you are afraid. You have every reason to be afraid. Yes, your fear is justified. Sit on my lap. I will help take care of you. All of that, but we're not going to drive the bus. And that makes,
You gotta do this, Neal.
it doesn't always work.
You gotta do this.
Ask Liz, it doesn't always work. There's a Liz on the bus too.
Oh, that's good. That's
She's
good.
she's well grounded and very practical.
Okay, all right.
Occasional nuisance.
Somebody wants to know what loom do you like?
All my looms.
What kinds do you?
I have 3 floor looms. One is a Gilmore 8 harness. It's 40 inches wide. It was the first loom I ever bought, and it looks a lot like a shack, and works a lot like a shack. And so it's my precious baby. And I weave the yardage on that. I have a baby wolf that's 8 harnesses. I use 6 harnesses and weave the 25-inch wide scarf wraps on silk wraps on the baby wolf. And I have a 45-inch wide 8 harness Maycomber. And that's what I weave the 15-inch wide scarves on. I love the weight of a Maycomber. And I think that's just from weaving at Haywood Community College, you know.
Oh,
If I wanted to weave a rug, I could, kind of thing. It's big and heavy, and I feel like I've done something. But I'll probably downsize that one to something that'll fit in my old folks' home room.
all right. Laura Smith wants to know, what advice do you have for someone who's just starting to learn to weave? Anything to focus on or to avoid?
Well, one, don't stop, even because you're gonna screw up a lot. So don't stop. If you really want to weave, don't quit weaving, keep trying. You may not like placemats, you may like rugs. Keep weaving till you find the thing that you like to weave, and then weave a lot of that. Or find a direction or the place that's your happy place in weaving, you know, and learn as much as you can about it.
People want to know about your walking wheel.
My walking wheel is number 65. It is made by Lyle Wheeler. And that is one of those stories of divine intervention, maybe. I woke up one morning and did not hear the audible voice, but you know, there's that fuzzy place between awake and asleep. And I heard, learn to weave. And so I was like, I obey the voice just in case. I take all that with a grain of salt. It's like, was that, I don't know. But learn to weave. So I got a drop spindle and I absolutely failed at it, throwing it across the room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I kept trying. And one day at SAF, I was sitting there, my booth is usually next to Lyle's, and we were talking. It was a Sunday morning. It was one of the calm spaces. And I was telling him about this and thinking that the big wheel has something that's like a drop spindle. You just spin it with the big wheel. And I thought, well, maybe I could do that. And I told him all about this. And does he take payments? And we talked all about that. And I said, well, you know, if the universe still wants me to learn to spin, the next person that comes into the booth will buy from me and will pay with $100 bill, and that'll be the down payment for my big wheel. And we both, you know, Lyle, he just, yep. I mean, not 5 minutes later, a woman came in the booth and spent $300, paid with $200 bills, and I just handed them over to Lyle, and I've got a big wheel. And I am a fledgling spinner. He'll come and get it if I don't use it, and I'm still waiting. I found a spinning class that I want to take at the folk school, and it's the same weekend as a yarn show in Raleigh, and it's like, so, but I don't have any aspirations. I just I just think that these wheels are beautiful.
Mhm.
And I've thought that since I was a little girl and was dragged to all of the colonial sites on the Eastern Seaboard, and with my
Oh,
mom.
really?
Oh,
Oh,
God,
okay.
yeah. Well, the home place is, I wasn't born there, but spent all the happy time, well, lots of happy times in Bath, North Carolina. It's on the water, but it's still 2 hours from the actual ocean.
Mhm.
Bath is about as big as this house, actually. Technical population, maybe 200. It is the oldest town in North Carolina. It is over 300 years old. They may be working on 350 years at this point. And my mother and my grandmother were enamored of the colonial fiber thing. And if they'd had their druthers, I would be weaving overshot coverlets.
Oh, right, right.
Closest I come is one of the woven shibori patterns is based on an overshot pattern.
Okay.
So, and since then these have always been beautiful to me. So,
Oh, they are. They are.
and I will,
I hate to do this.
yeah.
We gotta stop.
No.
I
Okay.
know. This has been fun.
Well,
Are you okay with this? You did great.
thank you. I had fun.
Good. That's the important thing.
You clued all of my, lots of the usual stories. So, yeah.
Well, we didn't get all the questions answered, so I encourage you all to go to Neal's website, which is henceforthyarns.com. And
Hit the contact me button. You can email me and
there
I
you
will.
go.
Yeah.
Somebody had a bunch of questions about using flowers for dyeing. And I don't know if that's your bailiwick, but I told her to contact you.
Yeah, contact
So-
me. It's not,
so-
but anyway, we'll try.
All right. And other people are giving her great suggestions. Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
So-
good, because I'd find somebody who does natural dyes. I don't.
So anyway, go to Neal's website, henceforthyarns.com. You can see more of her wonderful work. Like she said, she'll let you know where she's going to be, where she's going to be teaching, the shows she's going to be doing. And if you're at a show, go see her. Go see her beautiful yarn and the things that she and Liz make together. It's just wonderful. So thank you so much, Neal. We appreciate you being
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my anonymous sponsor.
Thank you to our anonymous sponsor. And if you want to sponsor an episode of Textiles and Tea, you can go to the website and either sign up for a particular date, or you can give me a call and we'll talk about it. But we do appreciate Anonymous and everyone who has supported HTA by sponsoring an episode of Textiles and Tea.
Okay. Thank you very much for making it feel like I was just sitting here chatting with you, because you're easy to talk to, Kathy.
Well, we're going to talk more in SAF. We'll pick up where we left off at SAF. If you're all going to be at SAF, come join us. We'll keep talking.
Okay. Yes. Great.
Bye, Neal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We want to talk about Spinning and Weaving Week. Woohoo! We're gearing up for it. If you are ready to buy a ticket, registration is open. If you want to buy, sign up for the week long. The only thing you have to, it's $30, and it's a week of all kinds of studio tours and thread talks and classes and the marketplace life and the fashion show. I want to see y'all's fashion. I know you're out there making things, and I know some of you are making things with the stuff you got at Convergence. So we want to see it. Sign up and come join us. We already got people signing up for it. So come join us for the fashion show. It is October the 7th through the 13th, and registration is open if you want to go ahead and buy your ticket for the week. Or if you want to teach or be a vendor, let us know. That is still open also. So if you have some ideas of how you would like to, and this is a great place. If you're thinking about going on to teach at Convergence and some other places, here's a good place to start. There are 1-2 hour classes. Good place to start. Excuse me. If you're interested, give us a call. We'll be glad to help you out. Excuse me. We want to thank everybody who has supported us by giving us a donation or doing a membership. There'll be, that's how we support these programs, whether it's Spinning and Weaving Week, Careers in Textiles, whatever. It's from the support that we get from your memberships and your donations. So thank you all so much. If you want to donate, you can go to weavespindie.org or you can give us a call, either one. We appreciate y'all doing that. If you've missed any of the episodes, you can watch them on HGA's Facebook page, or you can watch it on YouTube. If you would rather watch it on YouTube, be sure you sign up, because if you subscribe, then you'll get a notice saying that new ones have been added to the Facebook page. Next week, Jean Vogel is going to be on here. You may have seen her at Convergence, and so we're excited to have her on board. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next week. Happy tea.